Hi everybody. Today's lesson's on adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation is when a single species evolves into several species over time. See, one of the ideas of evolution, one of the more controversial ideas, is that all organisms share a common ancestor or come from a common descent. That means that if you go back billions of years ago, like we have evidence that life evolved 3.5 billion years ago, there was one form of life on this planet. Right? Now it's this very, very ancient form of bacteria. Over time, that original population of bacteria was split apart into several different smaller populations, and each of these small populations evolved in a different way. One of the populations may have evolved into the animals that we have on the planet today, and another population eventually evolved into plants and the fungus and the protists. All the different organisms, all the diversity that we have today can be traced back to this ancient form of bacteria. Now, in evolution, we say that two organisms are closely related to each other if they share a recent common ancestor, and I'll explain that a little bit more. So in this diagram, we have humans and several other organisms here that are all closely related through evolution. So the first question says, how long ago did the humans and the chimpanzees share a common ancestor? Right? Well, here we have humans right here, and then chimpanzees are two over. And if we follow their branches all the way down to where they meet, right, we see that they shared a common ancestor 6 million years ago. So if you go back in time 6 million years, before there was humans and before there was chimpanzees, there was something else, that common ancestor. But it was that ancestor's population was split apart into two separate populations. One of those groups evolved into the humans that we have today. Another one evolved into the chimpanzees that we have today. The second question here says, what is the chimpanzee's closest living relative? Right? Even though that chimpanzees are humans' most closely living relative, the chimpanzees have something that is even more closely related to them, and that is these bonobos right here. If we follow their branches back, we see that they split apart 3 million years ago. And bonobos and chimpanzees actually have an interesting evolutionary path. You see, their populations were separated by the Congo River in Africa. The bonobos are found south of the Congo River, and the chimpanzees are found north of the Congo River. Now, south of the Congo River, where the bonobos lived, there was plenty of food. Right? So today, when the bonobos evolved and split apart from the chimpanzees, one of the bigger differences, besides their size, bonobos are slightly smaller, but they also have a more gentler personality, right? They're not as aggressive, and they don't have this fighting instinct that chimpanzees have. And that's because they always had plenty of resources to survive. For example, when bonobos are frightened or scared or threatened, they have a tendency to like cuddle together in groups and start grooming each other. Whereas chimpanzees, they have kind of this attack instinct, They've always had to fight each other for resources. And chimpanzee attacks on humans are like some of the nastiest animal attacks ever. They bite off, fingers, and they rip off faces. They're just crazy strong and crazy aggressive, right? Well, if you fast forward to today, even though the bonobos always lived in an area where there was plenty of resources, today the bonobos are endangered, right? Because they're threatened by humans and poachers, and they don't really, have this temperament where they can defend themselves. Whereas chimpanzees, their populations in nature are doing okay. So, the chimpanzees and bonobos splitting apart is an example of speciation, right? So speciation is just the formation of a new species. Right? In order for speciation to occur, one of the populations must be reproductively isolated from each other. So this isolation can occur by geography, like we saw with the chimps and the bonobos. They were separated by the Congo River. In this diagram, we see that the Albert squirrel and the Kaibab squirrel are separated by this large canyon. Right? They can be separated by behavior. Right? There's a lot of birds that don't mate, not because they can't, but because, they don't recognize each other's songs, or, there's a bird called a bird of paradise that have these specific dances. And each species of bird of paradise has a unique dance. And that's what keeps those populations separated from mating. Okay? Or they can be separated, by time. So maybe one population, evolved to be, active during the day, and the other population is nocturnal. So speciation always requires some form of reproductive isolation. Alright guys, that's it for today's lesson. Tomorrow we'll continue talking about some other patterns of evolution. Thank you. Bye.